James stared at the auction listing on his datapad, certain there had to be a mistake. A complete orbital station around Kepler 442c for 1 credit? Even decommissioned scrap metal was worth more than that. His finger hovered over the bid button as warning messages flashed across the screen. Remote location. No warranty. Buyer assumes all risks. This is either the deal of the century or the stupidest thing I've ever done, he muttered, pressing confirm. 3 months later, James guided his salvage ship Mercury's Dream toward the distant red dwarf system. Kepler 442c hung in space like a rust-colored marble, its thin atmosphere barely visible against the star's dim glow. The space station materialized on his scanners as he approached, a massive ring-shaped structure that dwarfed his modest vessel. "Holy shit," James whispered. The station wasn't just functional, it was pristine. Gleaming metal surfaces reflected his ship's running lights, and docking bays yawned open like welcoming mouths. This wasn't scrap. This was a fully operational, deep space habitat that should have cost millions, not a single credit. His communications array crackled to life. "Incoming vessel, this is Kepler Station. Permission to dock granted. Welcome home, James." The voice was female, warm, and somehow familiar. James felt his heart skip. This is James Chen aboard Mercury's Dream. Did you just say, welcome home?" "Affirmative. Docking Bay 7 is prepared for your arrival. Someone is waiting to meet you." James maneuvered his ship through the atmospheric barrier and settled onto the deck with a soft thud. The bay pressurized around him, and gravity kicked in, Earth normal, perfectly calibrated. Through his viewports he could see lush greenery, beyond the transparent walls of what appeared to be a garden level. The airlock cycled, and James stepped onto the station wearing his environment suit. Though his readings showed the atmosphere was perfectly breathable. A figure approached from the shadows, a woman with dark hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to see right through him. "You must be James," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Liza. I've been waiting for you." James lifted his helmet's visor, breathing the station's air for the first time. It was clean with hints of recycled atmosphere and something else, something that reminded him of home. "Waiting for me?" "Lady, I bought this place at a government auction. I didn't even know anyone. Was aboard." Liza smiled, and James felt something stir in his chest. "The auction wasn't random, James. This station has been waiting for the right person. Someone who could see its potential. Someone with the courage to bid on the impossible." She led him through corridors that defied logic. The station was enormous, filled with hydroponic gardens, manufacturing bays, research laboratories, and living quarters that could house thousands. Everything was maintained to perfection, from the humming power cores to the crystal-clear water recycling systems. "How is this possible?" James asked as they entered an observation deck overlooking the planet below. "Who built all this? Who's been maintaining it?" "The previous inhabitants called themselves the architects," Liza explained, her hand touching a control panel that responded with soft blue light. "They were explorers, like humans, but they existed in a different time stream. They built stations, like this throughout the galaxy, waiting for species with the right combination of curiosity, courage, and adaptability to find them." James stared at her. "You're saying this was built by aliens, and they just left it here?" "Not left. Gifted." Liza turned to face him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "The architects learned that the most valuable resource in the universe isn't energy or materials, it's potential. They built these stations as tests and rewards for species ready to take their next evolutionary step." James felt his knees go weak. "And I passed some kind of test by bidding 1 credit on a space station? You saw value where others saw impossibility. You took a risk that could have cost you everything for the chance of something extraordinary. That's what the architects were looking for. Beings willing to leap into the unknown." Liza led him to the station's central command center, where holographic displays showed star charts spanning half the galaxy. Dozens of similar stations appeared, as blinking lights, each one waiting to be discovered. "The architects seeded these stations throughout human space centuries ago," she continued. They've been monitoring your species, waiting for you to develop interstellar travel. This station isn't just yours, James, it's humanity's graduation gift. James sank into the command chair, its neural interface automatically syncing with his brainwaves. Information flooded his mind, faster than light communication networks, advanced manufacturing techniques, terraforming technologies, and defensive systems that could protect entire star systems. There's something else, Liza said softly. I'm not entirely human anymore. The station's AI integrated with my consciousness when I arrived here 20 years ago. I've been its caretaker, preparing it for you. James looked at her with new understanding. You've been alone here for 20 years? Waiting was easier when I knew it had a purpose, she replied. The station needed someone to guide the next arrival, someone who could bridge the gap between human and architect technology. James stood and took her hand. It was warm, real, human, despite everything she'd told him. What happens now? Now, we activate the network, Liza said, her eyes bright with possibility. We contact the other station keepers throughout the galaxy and begin humanity's real journey into space. The architects left us the tools, James. It's up to us to build the future. James looked out at the stars, then back at the woman who had waited decades for his arrival. For one credit, he'd bought humanity's destiny. The thought should have terrified him, but instead, he felt exhilarated. Where do we start, he asked. Liza smiled and activated the command console. Throughout the galaxy, ancient stations began to wake up, their signals reaching out across the void. Humanity's age of exploration was about to begin, and it all started with one man's willingness to risk everything on an impossible dream. The stars had never looked more welcoming.